Picture the ocean 50 million years ago. Not the ocean you know, the calm blue expanse people swim in today. This ocean was different. Warmer. Shallower. And absolutely teeming with life on a scale that makes today's seas look empty by comparison. Giant whales longer than school buses. Sea turtles the size of cars. And somewhere in those warm prehistoric waters, something was hunting all of them. Something so large, so powerful, so perfectly designed for killing, that it would remain the apex predator of the entire planet for over 20 million years. Its name is Megalodon. And once you understand what it actually was, not the movie version, not the myth, the real animal is far more terrifying than any Hollywood script could ever capture. The story of how humans discovered Megalodon is almost as strange as the animal itself. For centuries, people across the Mediterranean found large triangular stones washed up on beaches and embedded in cliffsides. The ancient Greeks and Romans had no explanation for them. Medieval Europeans called them tongue stones and believed they were the petrified tongues of dragons or serpents that had turned to stone by moonlight. They were sold as magical amulets, thought to cure poisoning and protect against disease. It wasn't until 1667 that a Danish naturalist named Nicholas Steno looked at one of these tongue stones and recognized it for what it actually was, a shark tooth. A very, very large shark tooth. This was a revolutionary insight. The question then became, what kind of shark leaves a tooth the size of a human hand? It took nearly 2 more centuries before science caught up to that question. In 1843, the Swiss naturalist Louis Agassiz formally described the species from fossil teeth alone, giving it the name Carcharodon megalodon, meaning big tooth in ancient Greek. For over 150 years, scientists believed Megalodon was closely related to the modern great white shark. But more recent research has turned this on its head. Genetic and anatomical studies now suggest Megalodon belongs to an entirely different lineage, the family Otodontidae, a group of giant sharks that diverged from great whites tens of millions of years ago. Megalodon and the great white are not closely related at all. They're more like very distant cousins who happen to share the same profession, apex predator of the ocean. What we know about Megalodon comes almost entirely from its teeth. And that's not as limiting as it sounds. A single tooth can reach 18 centimeters in length. That's not 18 millimeters, 18 centimeters. The largest great white shark tooth ever found measures about 6 centimeters. Megalodon's teeth are 3 times that size. Each tooth was serrated along both edges like a steak knife, but on a scale that could effortlessly slice through whalebone and blubber. And over the course of its life, a single megalodon could cycle through more than 40,000 individual teeth. This is why megalodon teeth are found everywhere, from North Carolina's beaches to Australian riverbeds to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Wherever there was warm ocean water in the Miocene and Pliocene epochs, megalodon teeth followed. Now let's talk about the question everyone actually wants answered: how big was this thing? The honest answer is we don't know exactly, because we've never found a complete megalodon skeleton. Sharks are made mostly of cartilage, which doesn't fossilize well. So scientists estimate size by scaling up from what we know about modern sharks. Current estimates place Megalodon between 15 and 20 meters long. To put that in perspective, a school bus is about 12 meters. The largest great white shark ever reliably recorded was 6.1 meters. In terms of weight, estimates range from 50 to 100 tons, roughly equivalent to a dozen elephants. Even the conservative estimates make Megalodon the largest predatory fish that has ever existed on Earth by a significant margin. In 2008, a research team used computer modeling to estimate Megalodon's bite force. The result was staggering, between 108,000 and 182,000 newtons of force. A great white shark generates about 18,000 newtons. A lion produces around 4,000. A human bite is roughly 1,300 newtons. Megalodon's bite was approximately 10 times stronger than a great white's, and over 100 times stronger than a human's. The jaw itself was roughly 3 meters wide enough to swallow a small car. With up to 5 rows of teeth and 276 individual teeth in total, when prey entered that jaw, there was no realistic path to survival. To truly understand Megalodon, you need to understand the world it lived in. The Miocene epoch, which ran from roughly 23 million to 5 million years ago, was a time of dramatic warmth. Global temperatures were significantly higher than today. Vast shallow inland seas covered parts of what are now dry continents. These warm, nutrient-rich coastal waters were paradise for marine life. Giant baleen whales evolved and diversified rapidly during this period. Enormous sea turtles, massive fish, and diverse shark species all flourished together. It was, in many ways, the most productive ocean ecosystem Earth has ever seen. And sitting at the top of all of it, controlling the flow of energy through the entire system, was Megalodon. Megalodon's diet is one of the most fascinating things we know about it because, unlike most aspects of the animal, we have direct physical evidence. Fossilized whale bones, found at multiple sites around the world, bear Megalodon tooth marks. And these bite marks tell us something remarkable about how Megalodon hunted. Many attacks were focused not on the whale's soft body, but on the hard bony parts, the flippers, the tail flukes, the skull. By targeting the locomotion organs first, Megalodon was systematically disabling its prey before moving in for the kill. This isn't random predation. This is calculated, deliberate hunting strategy, the same basic logic used by modern orcas, which are among the most intelligent predators on the planet. Here's something most people don't know about Megalodon: it had nurseries. Researchers studying the distribution of fossil sites have found that certain locations, particularly shallow, warm, protected coastal waters, contain a disproportionate number of smaller Megalodon teeth. These sites, found in places like Panama and the Canary Islands, are interpreted as nursery grounds. Areas where pregnant females gave birth and where young Megalodons spent their early years, protected from the open ocean. Estimates suggest Megalodon pups at birth were already around 2 meters long, bigger than most adult sharks alive today. They grew rapidly, potentially reaching 5 to 6 meters within the first few years of life. Megalodon was a genuinely global predator. Teeth have been found on every continent except Antarctica, from the Atlantic coast of the United States to Morocco, from Peru to Japan, from Australia to South Africa. This global distribution tells us something important: Megalodon was highly adaptable, able to follow its prey across vast ocean distances. It was, in every meaningful sense, a planetary apex predator, the single most dominant large predator in the global ocean ecosystem for over 20 million years. Megalodon didn't rule alone. There was Livyatan melvillei, a giant sperm whale with enormous functional teeth, potentially 18 meters long, that hunted other whales. There were other large shark species. There were massive crocodilians in coastal areas. These predators coexisted, likely by partitioning the ecosystem, different species targeting different prey, in different depth zones. The result was an ocean with multiple apex predators of enormous scale, a level of predator diversity the modern ocean simply doesn't have. Like all sharks, Megalodon possessed a sensory suite that made it an extraordinarily effective hunter. Sharks have a lateral line system, a network of canals that detect pressure changes and vibrations in the water. They can feel a struggling fish from hundreds of meters away. They have electroreceptors called the ampullae of Lorenzini, tiny pores that detect the faint electrical fields generated by the muscle contractions of other animals. Every living creature generates an electrical field, and sharks can detect these fields with extraordinary precision. They can smell a single part of blood per million parts of water. Megalodon, scaled up to its massive size, likely had these same senses amplified in proportion. In the ancient ocean, there was almost nothing that could move without Megalodon knowing it was there. So what happened to it? Approximately 3.5 million years ago, Megalodon disappeared from the fossil record. The primary driver appears to have been a dramatic global cooling event. Global ocean temperatures dropped. The warm shallow seas that Megalodon depended on for its nurseries began to shrink. The large baleen whales that formed the core of its diet began migrating toward colder polar seas, waters too cold for Megalodon to follow efficiently. This wasn't a sudden catastrophe. It was a slow, grinding pressure applied over hundreds of thousands of years. As prey became scarcer and harder to access, Megalodon's population declined. Simultaneously, the ancestors of modern orcas were rising, smaller, faster, more energetically efficient, and better adapted to the cooling world. Competition and prey loss together created a pressure Megalodon couldn't withstand. Here's the counterintuitive part of Megalodon's extinction: the very thing that made it so dominant, its enormous size, became its greatest vulnerability. Large animals require enormous amounts of food. A megalodon of 16 to 18 meters would have needed to consume hundreds of kilograms of prey regularly to maintain its metabolic demands. When prey populations declined and shifted to inaccessible cold waters, Megalodon couldn't simply switch to smaller prey the way a more flexible predator could. It was locked into a body plan that required massive prey to survive. In evolutionary terms, being the biggest sometimes means being the most fragile, because you have the least flexibility when the world changes. Could Megalodon still be alive? It's a compelling idea. But the scientific reality is clear. Megalodon cannot be alive today. It was not a deep-sea animal, it lived in warm, shallow, coastal waters, the most studied parts of the ocean. If it still existed, we would find evidence constantly. We'd find fresh teeth washing ashore. We'd find whale carcasses with megalodon scale bite marks. The youngest confirmed megalodon teeth are approximately 3.6 million years old. The evidence for extinction is overwhelming. But the reason people want to believe it's still alive tells us something interesting. The idea that something this magnificent could still exist is almost a form of hope. Megalodon's extinction didn't just remove a predator. It fundamentally restructured the entire ocean ecosystem. When an apex predator disappears, the effects cascade downward through the food web. With Megalodon gone, large whale populations were released from the most intense predation pressure they had ever faced. This likely contributed to the diversification and expansion of modern baleen whale species, the blue whales, humpbacks, and fin whales we know today. In a very real sense, the ocean world we think of as natural, with its great whales and shark species and marine diversity, was shaped in part by Megalodon's absence. The modern ocean is an ocean recovering, in slow motion, from the removal of its greatest predator. The study of Megalodon is not static. In 2022, a major study using oxygen isotope analysis of Megalodon teeth revealed that the shark was partially warm-blooded. It could maintain its body temperature higher than the surrounding water, similar to modern great white sharks. This warm-bloodedness likely allowed it to be more active and hunt effectively in a wider range of temperatures. It also potentially explains why cooling oceans hastened its extinction. Maintaining body temperature required more energy precisely when prey was becoming scarce. In 2023, a study reconstructed Megalodon's body shape more precisely than ever before, suggesting it may have been more slender than earlier reconstructions. Each new discovery adds nuance to our picture of this extraordinary animal. Let's return to scale one final time. If you stood next to a Megalodon tooth, it would be roughly as long as your forearm. If you swam next to a Megalodon, its pectoral fin alone would be larger than you. Its height proportional to its body would be roughly the size of a dinner plate. If a Megalodon opened its jaws fully, you could park a small car inside. A school of 50 great white sharks would represent roughly the same mass as a single large Megalodon. The blue whale is the largest animal on Earth today. Megalodon was likely between half and two-thirds that length, but a blue whale eats krill. Megalodon was all of that size, and it ate other giants. There's a humbling perspective that comes from studying Megalodon. Humans have been anatomically modern for about 300,000 years. Megalodon ruled the oceans for 20 million years, 66 times longer than our entire species has existed. It was not brought down by catastrophe or competition in any dramatic sense, it was outlasted by a world that slowly changed around it. We find its teeth on beaches today. We hold them in our hands. And in those teeth, in those smooth,